Welcome to the Covered Bridges in New Hampshire podcast, where we discuss all things related to covered bridges in the Granite State. Here's your host, Kim Chandler.
Hello, Covered Bridge people, and welcome to the podcast. Today we're speaking with photographer Steve Brown. Steve reflects on a lifetime behind the camera and offers practical guidance for capturing covered bridges, from understanding light and composition to how to work a covered bridge. Here we go. In this episode, we focus on what most of us do when we stop at a covered bridge. We take a picture. Photographer Steve Brown joins the podcast to discuss his decades behind the camera, the evolution of photographic equipment, and the tools that he uses today, along with practical advice for beginners and his experiences photographing covered bridges inside and out. Steve Brown is a self-taught photographer who first picked up a camera while stationed in Montana between Yellowstone and Glacier National Parks. Surrounded by extraordinary landscapes, he purchased his first camera, a Pentax K1000, determined to capture the scenery around him. After returning home from military service, Steve joined a local camera club and began competing with a Nikon 35mm SLR. Following his retirement in 2011, he invested in a Nikon DSLR and launched a focused second chapter as a landscape photographer. His work features covered bridges, lighthouses, old barns, churches, wildlife, ghost towns, and the overlooked details of rural America. He is a member of the National Society for the Preservation of Covered Bridges and the Vermont Covered Bridge Society, where he now handles editing for the Society's annual calendar. With his wife originally from Montana, Steve returns to the state every few years, continuing his exploration of ghost towns and western landscapes, camera always in hand. Welcome to the podcast, Steve.
Well, thank you. Glad to be here.
First question, how long have you been taking photos?
It all started when I was in the Air Force, and I got stationed in Montana, and I knew I had to get a camera, and I got a Pentax K1000, and that basically got me on my way, and that was over 50 years ago.
Wow. And that was film, not a digital
That
camera.
that was film,
Yeah.
and I did my 5 years in the service and got out and got involved. My uncle was in a camera club in Exeter, and that got me fine tuning, some of my work. And I had a lot of help, from the camera club and my uncle. And that got me on my way.
Excellent. And when did covered bridges become a focus? I know that you said that Montana doesn't have any covered bridges, so when did that start for you?
I think in the early 80s, we were camping on the Kangamangas at the Albany campground right next to the covered bridge. And we'd actually, to go swimming, there's not a lot of beaches, but there was sand underneath the covered bridge. And, I got a picture of my daughter and my son looking through the holes in the covered bridge.
Oh, that's
And
great.
I think that kind of got me started right there. The love of the covered bridges.
Mm-hmm.
So, so actually, when the kids started growing up, we had moved from Exeter to Farmington, and at the time, kids are in sports, kids are doing Boy Scouts, and the camera got put to the side, and it wasn't till I started doing some cruises and stuff, I decided to get back into it.
Mm-hmm.
And I retired in 2011, and so I went out, bought a new camera, and I says, well, I'm going to photograph all the covered bridges in New Hampshire.
Excellent.
And that's basically started my journey, and found out, we had approximately 58, 60 bridges.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of found out that you can keep going back to these bridges in the different seasons,
Yeah.
with the exception of mud season. You know, you got to be careful, especially in Vermont.
Yeah.
Mud season means a lot more up there than it does in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Um, and I just kept expanding. I completed New Hampshire. Found out Vermont had about 100 bridges.
Mhm.
Completed Vermont and did most of the local bridges in Maine.
Mhm.
And I think at the time Maine had like 11 bridges, and they're down to like 9 or 10 now. So it's sad to see these bridges go. And
Yeah, it
I
is.
think that's one of the reasons we need to document everything we can. And so I just set out to do all the bridges, and they're all done as day trips.
Mhm.
Very seldom go go out and stay overnight.
Right.
Um, and along the way, I picked up a photo partner, a woman that was a retired postmaster from Wakefield,
Mhm.
Darlene Bean, and I met her at a photo meetup group type of thing, and we talked for quite a while out in the parking lot. And a couple days later, I called her up and I says, "Yeah, I'm going to Vermont. Do you want to go?" And she just happened to have a picture of the Jenny farm on her computer.
Mhm.
And she says, "I'll go if you take me to this farm." And I came back and says, "Oh, you want to go to the Jenny farm?" And she said, "How'd you know that?" You know, I said, "Well, it's the most photographed place in Vermont."
Mhm.
And that started us on a journey.
That's excellent.
And she got me into doing birds and different other things. And
Mhm.
um, so I had a very good photo partner. And fortunately, my wife liked her. So
It is fortunate to have a spouse that supports your covered bridge addiction, I would agree.
yeah, and she didn't have my wife didn't have any interest at all. And um, I'm retired and she's still working, and that's not going over too good. So
What did your early camera setup look like when you first started, and how different is it from what you're using today?
I think initially you start off with a basic camera, and the Pentax K1000, and you have one main lens, maybe a 50 millimeter lens.
Mhm.
Uh, and today, uh, most of the lenses I use are zoom lenses.
Mhm.
So uh, in in covered bridges, majority of it is wide angle lenses.
Mhm.
So you can get close, you can get down on the side of the bridge.
Mhm.
Um, and I try to, work a bridge so I can use the one single lens and get everything I need.
Right. Can you talk a little bit about working a bridge? What that looks like?
Well, I think the first thing you have to do when you pull up to a bridge is put your car in a position that it's not going to show up in the photographs.
Yes, please.
So I learned that right off the get go, you know, and you don't want to have to go in and start editing out your
Your
car in the
car.
background.
Yeah.
Um, the I start off with usually the portal,
Mhm.
try to get a front view, and I kind of look for some curves, something that leads me into it.
Mhm.
Sometimes some of the bridges might have a curved guardrail going in,
Yep.
and I'll just go around and work it in different angles. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and
Mhm.
you find out when you get home and you're doing the editing.
Yep.
It's then I will go inside the bridge, and I think shooting inside is one of the hardest things that you'll come across,
Mhm.
because if you take a light reading and you get the interior all working for you, then you're going to have a blowout on the far end.
Right.
And, a blowout is when it's pure white and you can't make any details out.
Right.
So what I found is I take an exposure reading on the end of the tunnel, the blowout area, and then I use HDR, which
Okay.
I use Photometrics Pro, and I can go in there and they have a bunch of presets, and I'll bring in uh, the interior.
Okay.
So without that, it's very, very difficult to
Hmm.
get an exposure that's going to hit both of them.
Right.
So that's worked really good for me.
That's excellent.
Um, and I think one of the best photograph that I ever took of an interior, um, I'll get down real low on the floor and kind of use the lines.
Hmm.
Then um, I'm thinking of the college covered bridge in Henniker,
Yeah.
and I gave a photo of that to Arnold Grayton, that covered bridge builder, and he had that in his kitchen.
Oh,
And
that's
his
excellent.
wife said he looked at that photo every day.
That's excellent.
And that was
There's
the
n-
first covered bridge that Arnold had built by himself.
Yep.
So it had a lot of meaning to him. So
Yeah. There's no better honor than to have your photo in Arnold's kitchen.
no, no.
No. No.
Well, the other one, I was sitting here drinking some beers coming out of his refrigerator.
A beer and a covered bridge is perfect.
But, as most people know, Arnold's has passed.
Hmm.
And, all the beer he had uh, was the good stuff,
Yes.
usually came from a brewery somewhere,
Yeah.
local brewery. And that was an honor to be able to drink with him in his kitchen. So,
Yes. Yes. Definitely.
but,
And can you talk a little bit about we were talking before we started taping. I wish I had it on, so I'm going to ask you again. How perilous can it be to be under the bridge in the river, taking a photo of a covered bridge? What are some stories that have happened to you trying to
uh,
get a good shot?
um, so yeah, going back to working the covered bridges, I always try to get to the bottom to shoot the covered bridge.
Hmm.
Um, and there's only been a few times I've never been able to get to the bottom. And there's a guy in Vermont that's doing a series,
Yeah.
and he's basically he's gotten to the bottom of almost every covered bridge,
Hmm.
um, and I've seen him go up over his knees in mud and things like that. So
Oh,
he's doing a good job, better than
yes.
I gone places I wouldn't go.
Right.
Um, I think there was one bridge I had gone to. The banking was so steep, but there was these 4-inch trees. So I said, well, okay, I can go between trees. And one of the trees was rotten, and
Oh
down
no.
I went. And as a photographer, all you care about is save the camera.
Exactly.
Everything else will work out. And the thing of it is, that day, it's by myself.
Mm,
So there was nobody there if I had got hurt. So,
yeah. Yeah.
and I think when you're younger, you do things that you wouldn't do as you get older.
Hmm.
And I'm at that older point where, I got to watch myself.
Yeah. Yeah. You
No,
don't want to get hurt in pursuit
no,
of a
no.
good photo. Yeah.
Um, so one of the things when I work the covered bridge, and I get to the bottom, uh, I'm always looking for something different, something that other people don't take.
Mhm.
And I'm a big fan of using the foreground.
Yep.
So, like if there's rocks or whatever, uh, there's times, I'll take my shoes off, especially in the summertime. I got shorts, I'll walk in the water. Um, Wintertime, not so much. Um, and, I've actually gone on the ice at the Albany covered bridge. And, I knew it was very shallow where I was at, but it was deep enough that I filled the boot full of water,
Jeez.
you know, and and that was the easy part. The rest of it was I was stuck with this wet boot the rest of the day, and I had more covered bridges to go to. So
So a lesson to the listeners would be to bring an extra pair of boots
in socks,
and socks.
yeah. Um, and I didn't think it was that daring of a thing to do, but because I knew there wasn't much, wasn't like I was going to go into a 4-foot hole or
Right.
you know. So, but in the end, I got the shot.
I would hope so.
Um, so when you're filming, trying to get foreground, so you gotta try to you want everything in focus,
Mhm.
and so that's a little more difficult, and that's where you try to use a tripod,
Mhm.
and you go into the extremes, of shooting, at f/22, and kind of set your focal point maybe 10 feet out so everything comes in focus.
Mhm.
Um, and I got some good shots doing that over the years.
Mhm.
And a lot of people wouldn't go to that extremes to do that.
Right.
Even getting to the bottom, a lot of people won't even attempt it. But with that said, there's a lot of covered bridges. There's good path leading down to the bottom,
Mhm.
and it's the guy from Vermont. I told him when he got one bridge recently, I said, you made mountain goat status,
Well, some of them, um, they'll have a path, and I'm using that term loosely. I went down
Yes.
under the Slate Bridge this summer. Well,
Mhm.
actually, it was in the fall, and it was picker pucker bushes and I don't know, that white fluffy stuff. I was covered. I looked like I had been rolling in cotton when I came back up to the
Yeah.
top. It was a mess. And after all of that, I couldn't get a good shot. So
Yeah.
it was kind of a waste of an effort for me. But anyway.
Well, there's sometimes, I'm out there, I kind of wish I had a kayak or whatever, but
Yes. Have you ever been in a boat or a kayak under a bridge?
no,
Okay.
no.
That is I've only done that a couple of times. And we did it in the Connecticut under the Cornish Windsor a couple summers ago, and I'll tell you what, that river is fast.
Okay. Yeah.
Very, very fast. So just be careful. I had a hard time getting back.
Now the bridge over where you live there, you've done that in
Oh,
kayak,
yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we kayak under there a lot.
Right.
But that water's pretty still, so you can
Right.
hang out and take photos if you want, but
Yeah.
Cornish Windsor, not so much. Do you eh, how is how have cameras changed, and how do you think that matters to taking photos of covered bridges? And I think about, modern cameras. For me, I use my iPhone. I know that's shameful. I should probably just hang up now and stop talking. And part of the reason why I use my iPhone more often is because it it helps me with lighting, because lighting is a real issue for me, and I've never been able to master my Canon to figure out lighting. How do you think modern cameras have made it different to photograph covered bridges?
Well, with what you're just saying, um, 2 years ago, I was in Montana and was photographing with my wife's cousin, and she had a mirrorless camera,
Mhm.
and she let me use it, and I fell in love with it. And reason the reason is the same thing you're talking about. What you're actually looking at is the picture you're taking.
Mhm.
And I've always kind of struggled a little bit. Um, a lot of times I'd go out, if I had, a picture that I knew was outstanding, I would bracket.
Mhm.
And that means that you're doing different settings, 2 or 3 settings around where you think it is.
Okay.
And the closer you can, I mean, you can get into editing and kind of bring them in. But if it's too far out, it's not, you're not going to get what you want.
Right.
So I think with the mirrorless, most cameras, you look through the viewfinder and it's hitting the mirror and going out through your lens.
Mhm.
And the mirrorless, it's actually going right to the processor.
Mhm.
And what you're looking at is what the process is getting through the viewfinder.
Right.
And it's more realistic what you're
Mhm.
getting.
Yeah.
So it's, um, I think that's big improvement. But with that said, you can get these nice cameras and they're more sophisticated, and you almost got to have a degree in computers to understand the camera,
Yeah. Yeah.
everything it's doing. So
Yeah.
that might not be the right uh, way to go for beginners.
Mhm.
Um, you can get more like the basic cameras instead. Um, so I used to I have a D850, which is a high end camera,
Mhm.
and that's my backup camera now. Now got the Z8,
Mhm.
and I got a lot to learn on the Z8. You know,
Yeah, they are. They're hard to use if you don't take the time.
yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I try to tell what I do is when I get a new camera, I'll sit on the couch and go through the focus points and do all this um, using the manual and try to understand the manual.
Mhm.
And you can just sit on your couch and take pictures of the wall and other things, and until you understand it a little bit better.
Right.
Um, then if I go out and I want to shoot something that's totally different, I'll go on YouTube and put in there, okay, I want to do the Milky Way with uh, the Z8. What settings to use, and it will tell me basically how to do it. And I'll get an index card and I'll put that down, in my notes. And when I'm on location, I can pull that out as a reference and,
Mhm.
you know, get me in the ballpark. So it's, even, the pros have go to YouTube or other areas.
Right. Well, I was gonna ask you, are you mostly self-taught? I mean, I know nowadays it's a lot easier. You can just go online and Google what you want, but how did you learn all of these things 50 years
I
ago?
started off with getting some basic books on photography,
Mhm.
um, and then getting into the camera club and working with my uncle, and uh, had some people help me along the way. Um, and I think the other thing was when I picked up uh, shooting with my photo partner, Darlene, we're traveling to and from different locations, and we're talking photography.
Mhm.
And, she was shooting Nikon and I was shooting Nikon, and, it really worked out. If I had a problem, I could ask her or vice versa.
Right.
Um, and I think if if I get in a car and travel to Vermont by myself, it's not as much fun. You
Right.
know?
Well, you're making me think about camera clubs. Are there even camera clubs anymore? Do those even exist?
Oh, yes, I do. I'm a member of the
Oh, good.
Rochester Camel Club. Yep, right here
Excellent.
in Rochester.
Excellent.
Um, Manchester has one.
That's
Concord,
excellent. I'm so
different
glad to
areas.
hear that.
Yeah,
That's great. Well,
but
I think, travel, especially when you're doing covered bridges, you're traveling all over the state. And it's great to have somebody with you.
and the other thing is what covered bridges do for you. It gets you into portions of the state of towns you've never heard of. Um, Now you've got churches, you've got barns, you've got all sorts of landscapes.
Mhm.
So when you're traveling, if all of a sudden you see a beautiful barn,
Mhm.
you're stopping.
Right.
So now you got a collection of barns and different things. Um, the only holdback, would be traveling down the road in Vermont and photo partners screaming, "Oh, we got to stop!" And a lot of the roads up there, there's no area to pull off.
Right.
And by the time, you got a quarter-mile walk to back where you saw something.
Right. Right.
But, there's been times I've turned around and just pull up and Darlene would shoot out the window or
Yeah.
whatever, or I'd jump out, then you're back in the car before some truck runs you over. But
Well, and some of the covered bridges, I've felt like I'm gonna get hit by a car if I don't move. Have you experienced trying to get a shot in some of these New Hampshire's covered bridges with the traffic?
I think the worst one in New Hampshire is the one up in Plymouth. And it's not a traditional covered bridge.
Mhm.
So it's made for a heavy duty road.
Yep.
Um, and all the wood underneath is all laminated
Mhm.
and it's not traditional. And people go across that at high speeds
Yes, they do.
and it's kind of rounded. So if you're out in the middle of the road filming, you got somebody who can be right on top of you in a
Yep.
very short time.
Yep.
So, it's one of those things when you pull up to a bridge, you kind of look it over um, and I would almost say, 92% of the bridges are going to be, on an isolated road
Mhm.
and you're not going to have the same thing, as you would in that one particular bridge.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Are there times of day or seasons that you feel make it easier for folks to photograph covered bridges?
uh, I think, if you're going to start off at covered bridges, I'd say start in the summertime.
Mhm.
The weather's nice, and very seldom you're going to find a lot of people around a covered bridge. So you get there and you got the whole bridge to yourself.
Mhm.
Now, if you get into foliage season, especially in New Hampshire, if you're on the Kangamangas, I was on the Albany covered bridge. I had company come in from Montana and we stopped there.
Mhm.
And I think there was 20 people on the bridge
Yeah.
and there was cars trying to pass,
Right.
so um, it's really not my cup of tea. I prefer being off, without people.
Right.
And for what I do, uh, I'm trying to sell my work and, I don't want a lot of people in it. So
Right. Yeah, that can be challenging. Have you been to the Flume Bridge during the foliage season?
uh, I really haven't.
Ugh, you can't get
Uh,
a photo without a person on it.
no. And, a couple of times I've been to the Flume has been in the wintertime
Mhm.
where I've walked in.
Yeah, that's a nice time to
Um,
go.
and, it's a beautiful setting.
Mhm.
It's
What do you think about lighting? I know for me, there are certain times of day, certain weather conditions that seem to come out better. But for me, sometimes if I've traveled to Pittsburgh, for example, I'm not coming back anytime soon, so I have to take advantage of whatever I have. And the last time I was there were Canadian wildfires going on, so my photos are all smoke hazy. But are there certain weather conditions or times of day that you think would be best for people?
well, it's one of the problems I run into is uh, when I travel, long distance. I'm doing everything as a day trip,
Mhm.
and I don't want to get up at 4 in the morning, then end up driving home after a 17-hour day.
Right.
Um, so most of the time, I'll try to get on the road about 7 in the morning, and so I'm running into you got the lighting that you have. You
Right.
don't have a lot of choice.
Right.
Um, and sometimes you get there and it's all cloudy,
Right.
and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yep.
Um, but there are things that are out there now, and I I'm kind of more of a traditionalist, so I don't want to take a photo and do a sky replacement.
Right. Yeah.
And I've probably got about a half a dozen photos that I've taken that I've actually used the sky replacement. And the more I thought about it, was I'm spending good money for gas, my time, and you get there, and y- if it's heavy clouds, the stuff that uh, the clouds are rolling or whatever, those are good conditions to shoot.
Mhm.
But if it's just a low level cloud, it just kills your photograph.
Right.
So if you and I haven't really done any sky replacements on covered bridges,
Mhm.
uh, but going along what you said, I think shooting in the wintertime when the sun is low, you got shadows,
Mhm.
and you can shoot almost any time of day.
Mhm.
Um, you know, get away from covered bridges. One of the places that I would shoot, and I get pictures, the old Orchard Beach Pier in Maine,
Oh, yeah.
and I shoot it in the wintertime. There's nobody walking on the beach. You own it.
Right.
Um, and the piers underneath have got these long shadows
Mhm.
right at 11 o'clock in the morning.
Mhm.
And you only get that, in the wintertime.
During the winter. Yeah.
Um, and I I like winter photography. So it's good time. I won't go out when it's, 20 below 20 degrees. I try to pick my days.
Yeah.
Uh, try to, I don't want to drive end up driving home in a snowstorm.
Right. Right.
And, there was one bridge I photographed in Vermont, and it's not a traditional covered bridge. Um, it's was built as a replica, but it's up high. So
Mhm.
you can get mountains behind it where most covered bridges are in the valley and you can't get that.
Right.
So this bridge, you can get sunsets, or you can go in the evening and catch the Milky Way.
Oh, nice.
Um, and you can't do that with most bridges.
Mhm.
Um, and I took off. It was beautiful, blue skies. Got within 15 miles of the bridge, and the snow was coming down sideways. And I was kind of mad, but they made tremendous photographs.
Yeah.
You know, yes,
Yeah. Well,
and it,
you have to work with the weather that you have, and I think what I'm hearing you say too is you're taking the photo of what you're seeing, and you don't
yeah,
alter it with a lot of filters and other things that I think has become commonplace with some photography.
Most of that done is in post,
Yeah.
you know, Photoshop or um, a lot of times, um, I've gone to bridges and shot the Milky Way over the bridge,
Mhm.
and that's a whole different ball game. You're going at night, you got to use flashlights, um, and I usually try to have some kind of light that I'd put inside the covered bridge.
Oh, yeah.
So you got the Milky Way, but you're lighting up the interior of the bridge. With I had a little push button light that I would
Mhm.
use
Oh, yeah.
and put that in the inside. And that bridge in particular that I was doing that with uh, didn't have a road going through it,
Oh, perfect.
so you could actually go out and do a lot of stuff like that.
Mhm.
So,
That's excellent. What advice would you give to someone who wants to start photographing New Hampshire's covered bridges? Every program I do, I encourage people to get out there and take photos and visit them all. What advice would you give to people?
uh, kind of know your camera a little bit beforehand, and a lot has to do with uh, understanding the manual and going back to sitting on your couch, understand the buttons, understanding what the difference between F5 and F22,
Mhm.
and just some of the basics. Um, and going back, come up to a covered bridge and just kind of work it and take a lot of photographs of it. Um, and go home and look at it and learn from your mistakes.
Mhm.
Um, and a lot of things I shoot in what's called the raw format.
Mhm.
So when I get home, I can't post any of those pictures until I edit them.
Mhm.
And I could have 200 photos.
Oof. How long does that take you to edit?
Not too long.
Okay.
I've got the process down. Uh, uh, go through, and anything that's out of focus and doesn't have a good exposure, you get rid of it.
Right.
Uh, and usually I'll process about 10% of those photos.
Okay.
And then sometimes come winter time when it's snowing out like it is today,
Mhm.
I'll sit at the computer and go through some of these old photos that I have,
Mhm.
and I'll find what I call hidden gems.
Yeah.
And I wonder why didn't I process that photo to begin with?
Right.
But it gives you something to do,
Right.
you know.
Mhm. And your photographs have been featured on all types of media outlets, including WMUR New Hampshire Chronicle, which you were interviewed on, and most recently in AARP magazine. So
Yes.
how did that happen for you? How did these media outlets find you? And what else have you been featured on?
Um, well, that's about it for covered bridges.
Okay.
Um, I'm a member of the Vermont Covered Bridge Society, and the president of the society had got contacted um, about the Cornish Windsor Covered Bridge,
Mhm.
and she gave him my name, and they contacted me.
That's excellent.
Then I found out that you're involved.
Yeah.
So, it's covered bridges is a small world. You get to know a lot of people
Right.
from, a lot of places, and
Mhm.
It is a very small community.
it is.
Mhm. Tell me about Vermont. I know you've put together their fundraising calendar for the last few years, right?
Yeah. And I usually start the calendar probably in January, and I just finished up a couple days ago, and I go out and find more professional people.
Mhm.
And if I see somebody on Facebook that's, I like their work, and
Yeah.
I'll contact them.
Mhm.
Um, and the hard part is Vermont has 100 covered bridges,
Mhm.
and the criteria is not to use the same bridge twice.
Right.
They want it spread it around all the counties in Vermont.
Mhm.
Uh, then you get into the seasons.
Do you
So
try to match the photo to the month?
seasons.
Okay.
So in other words, well, last year one of the covered bridges um, had a Christmas tree inside the covered bridge.
Mhm.
So it was a bridge that doesn't have any traffic on it, was taken out of service, and
Mhm.
they put a Christmas tree in it. Now, it wasn't my photograph, but I saw it. I knew right off the get go is going to be December,
Right.
for the Christmas season. Uh, and this is where the problem comes in, because a lot of people will go shoot in foliage. They'll shoot a little bit in the summertime, but then you don't have March and April,
Right.
which is mud
Which is
season,
mud season. Yeah.
right? Well, everything comes around the mud season. So, and I've
Oh.
been known to shoot in all the seasons,
Mhm.
and I have, 100 different bridges in my portfolio,
Mhm.
and uh, so a lot of times, if other people can't fill what I need, then I'll end up putting one of my photos in it.
Right. Well, there's nothing wrong with that. You're doing all the work.
So for the most part, I think, you're talking 13 photos because you got the cover,
Right.
then the 12 months. And so this year was, I wanted the cover to be foliage. So, I ended up with a lot of foliage shots.
Mhm.
And this year wasn't the best foliage season,
Mhm.
in Vermont.
Yep.
So, uh, but I think, we got a good calendar coming up,
That's excellent.
and we actually sold about 500 calendars this year,
That's amazing.
and including Vermont Country Stores actually had put some calendars in their stores,
Oh, nice. That's
and I
excellent.
think they bought about 100.
That's excellent.
So
That is really excellent. Do you mentioned that you've been back to the same covered bridge over and over again. Have you has what is there anything that you've seen that stands out to you in the way these bridges have changed? Or have you seen things maybe that other people haven't noticed, or what has that experience been?
I think one of the first things you do when you pull up to the covered bridge is you look at the weight limit on the bridge, and a lot of people don't even know what their own car weighs. And I have a good sized truck, 3/4 ton,
Mhm.
and there's bridges I've pulled up, and it's like I can't go across that,
Mm.
but most people don't know that, and they go across it anyways.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. They don't look at the
But
height either.
yeah, but what I've found, recently, I pull up the bridges and the weight limit's 20 ton.
Yeah.
What's a wooden bridge built a long time ago.
Mhm.
I know they got I-beams underneath.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
And um, I think it's a good thing in a way,
Mhm.
even though I'm a traditionalist, that they've put I-beams to get the heavier loads.
Mhm.
And a lot of, like farm tractors and different things uh, in Vermont to be able to get um, the heavier equipment across. So, over time, I've learned when I pull up there, I said, "Oh, they got I-beams, underneath."
Yeah.
Uh, but they're still trying to keep everything else, as a tradition.
Right.
Then sometimes you pull up and you'll see the deck of the bridge is made of cement,
Yeah.
and the upper portions aren't even connected to the cement.
Right.
It's just sitting over the top of it. So,
Yeah.
um, in that respect, I prefer having a more traditional covered bridge. But
Hmm.
and one of the things, when I first started photographing the covered bridges, I started posting on Facebook,
Hmm.
and there's probably 10 or 12 different groups on there, and you can get overwhelmed by, you know,
Yes, you
putting
can.
all these out there. And
Yeah.
I've kind of refined it down to a couple lately.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work trying to maintain all that, but
Yes, it is.
um, there's different bridges that are made the traditional way, and then there's bridges that aren't.
Right.
But they're still photogenic, no matter how you look at it.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the things that I found over time is I like bridges that, uh, like the Stock Covered Bridge. It's a village.
Yes.
There's a meeting house church right on the corner,
Yeah.
and you can bring all that into your photograph.
Hmm.
Um, and the only thing you really have to watch at the Stock Bridge, that the thing is pure white,
Yes.
and you go there in the sun,
Yeah. You can
it's
get
not going to
blanched out.
photograph too good.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had that same problem.
There's one bridge in Vermont that had a 5-story mill built right beside the covered bridge, and they had a whole town built up around the bridge.
Hmm.
Then the mill caught on fire, took out the whole town in the bridge,
Oh no.
you know,
Ugh,
and they never rebuilt it.
that's
It
terrible.
was a big 5-story wool mill.
Wow.
Um, then there's another one that has what's called the crib dam, and that's kind of fascinating. And is a meeting house. So if I can go different places that have history behind it, those turn out to be some of my favorite covered bridges.
Right. I was going to ask you, do you have a favorite New Hampshire covered bridge?
Well, I think I have to go back to the Albany because, you know, first bridge.
Yeah.
I camped there and I had, a lot of good memories with the kids growing up.
Yeah.
Then I think I would go up the Stock,
Hmm.
and well, what a lot of people don't know is Stock had a prisoner of war camp.
Yeah, it did.
So, and it was mostly German uh, troops that were there,
Hmm.
and they had them in the woods cutting trees.
Yeah.
So it's
Well, and that goes back to what you said. I mean, there's when you're in those small communities that some people have probably never even heard of, there's so much other history that you can investigate
exactly,
there.
yeah.
Yeah, which I think makes that journey even more fun, I think.
It does, and I've extended that. Uh, I spend a lot of time in Montana, and when I'm in Montana, I was photographing ghost towns, and it's the same thing. And some of the ghost towns haven't been kept up,
Mhm.
and the houses are falling down, and there's places I go and I kick around, and an old beat up house that's fallen down, and
Right.
uh, you get some excellent photographs.
I bet.
And then there's ghost towns out there that's been completely restored.
Mhm.
which is a good thing, and they turn them into the state parks.
Right.
So, uh, you got two worlds,
Yeah.
and the ones that are falling down are, you know, they're going to go away
Right.
in a short period of time.
Right.
So I think it's good that, we're documenting a lot of these
Yep.
different things.
I think so too. I think you were talking earlier about how important that is, and for me, when I'm doing covered bridge programs, having old photographs of the covered bridges, I mean, it makes the entire program to have access to those, and someday our photos will be old photos of New Hampshire's covered bridges, and so I think that's critical to document what the bridges look like now because 50, 100 years from now, they may not look the same, they may not even be there.
Right.
I don't know. I hope they are.
I I don't think, all of them are going to be there,
Mm.
and mainly because you know, money's getting hard to get. You're talking a lot of people don't realize that, you just can't go out in the woods and cut a tree and have it milled, and um
Mhm.
all the wood that we have in our region is um new growth.
Right.
And so they end up going to Oregon and Washington State and up into Canada to get the wood to build the bridges because it's old growth
Right.
and it's stronger. So
Right. Yeah. Well, we can only hope that they will
yeah,
be there long after us. So, how can people see your photos?
if you go into Fine Arts America,
Mhm.
uh, backslash profiles, backslash 6 dash Steve dash Brown. Um, and I got pretty close to 1,500 photos on that site.
Wow. Excellent.
Um, and all the photos in there are put into categories.
Okay.
So you can find, I have one category that's 1,000 views or more. I got uh, covered bridges of northern New England.
Mm.
So I do go into Massachusetts a little bit
Mhm.
and into Vermont. Um, I got ghost towns in there,
That's excellent.
and I Montana, Yellowstone.
Yep.
Uh, so it's one of those things that you can go in and look around, and not all the photos in there are what I consider photo worthy of being there, but you never know what somebody's going to buy.
Exactly. Yep.
And,
That's
you
great.
know, so it's,
That's excellent. And you share some of your covered bridge photos in several of the covered bridge groups, right?
yes. Yeah.
On Facebook.
I'm on Vermont Covered Bridges,
Mhm.
uh, the Covered Bridge Experience,
Mhm. That's a great one.
which is a good one. And I do covered bridges all in capital letters.
Yep.
I think that probably the top one.
I think it is too.
Um,
Yeah.
they get out to more people,
Mhm.
and people appreciate good photography, and
They do.
so,
They do.
and there's a couple New England ones uh,
Mhm.
that I'll post to.
Yep.
I,
Excellent.
and I at one point I used to post to all of them, but I just you know
There's so
just
many.
too time consuming.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is. Well, thank you for talking to me today, and thank you for documenting, especially New Hampshire's covered bridges. They have a special place in my heart, as you know, and I love seeing your images, and I'm grateful for you're putting yourself into peril in some circumstances to get the right shot, and I am very grateful for your work. Thank you.
I appreciate it. And if anything else, I'd like to say is join a covered bridge society. the National Society for the Preservation of Covered Bridges. And what was good about that, I learned about trusses.
Yes.
I got to meet Arnold Graydon.
Yeah.
I got to meet you.
Yeah.
And I got the same thing. I got a free membership into the Vermont Covered Bridge Society for shooting 100 covered bridges.
That's excellent.
And one of the stories is in Vermont, a lot of the bridges are owned by the towns.
Mhm.
And when they had Hurricane Irene come through
Oh, terrible.
and just took one of the bridges and dumped it downstream,
Mhm.
and the townspeople screamed, they have their bridge back.
Yeah.
So it just shows you, that, the people want their bridges, and
Yeah, they do. They do.
and the locals appreciate them.
Mhm.
So,
Well, thank you for talking to me today, Steve.
okay.
The Covered Bridges of New Hampshire podcast is created and hosted by me and recorded in Hancock, New Hampshire. The song Old New Hampshire was arranged and performed by Josh Black. Our introduction is courtesy of Greg Kretschmar. This podcast is a companion to my book, Covered Bridges of New Hampshire. You can learn more about the book, explore blog posts, view covered bridge videos and photographs, check event listings, and access an interactive covered bridge map at coveredbridgesnh.com. Follow Covered Bridges of New Hampshire on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube for additional content and updates. If you enjoy the podcast, please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Kim Chandler. Thank you for listening.